The sound of ripping fabric echoed across the grand Joseon ballroom. Nadia stumbled backward, 7 months pregnant, as Sujin, her husband's ex-fiancé, tore at her midnight blue Valentino dress with violent force. "You need to leave. Now!" Sujin hissed, her hands aggressive, pushing, pulling. The crowd gasped. Security moved. And Jean, the Korean Mafia boss, stood frozen, watching his ex-fiancé attack his pregnant wife in front of 300 of Seoul's elite. "Get your hands off her!" someone shouted. But Sujin didn't stop. She grabbed Nadia's arm, nails digging in, yanking her toward the exit with desperate strength. "I said run!" Sujin screamed, tears streaming down her face. And that's when Nadia understood. This wasn't an attack. This was a rescue. But to understand how we got here, to this moment where love looked like violence and salvation wore the mask of betrayal, we need to go back. 7 months. To the warehouse where Nadia's nightmare began. Everyone said a story this dark, this layered, would lose you by now. But you're still here. If you need to know why the ex-fiancé attacked the pregnant woman, why love looked like violence, drop one word below. Watching. Let's prove the doubters wrong together. 7 months earlier, Nadia Brooks knelt on cold concrete, blood trickling from her split lip where Kang's ring had caught her dark skin. "Please," she begged, her voice thick with fear. "I'll get you the money. Every cent." Kang circled her like a predator. "Your father stole 4 million won before his convenient car accident. You inherited his debt. And his consequences." "I'm pregnant." Her hands cradled her barely showing belly. "I can't. I know." Kang gripped her chin brutally. 3 months along. My child. Conceived during our transaction. That night. The price of her first payment extension. Nadia's stomach churned with shame and revulsion. Kang pulled her to her feet, slid a dossier across his desk. Park Jin-woo stared back. Sharp Korean features, obsidian eyes, dangerous beauty. "Seoul's most untouchable crime lord," Kang said. "The man whose shipping routes I need to expand my empire. You're going to seduce him, make him trust you, love you, then get me his manifests, schedules, contacts. 6 months. I can't. You can." Kang opened another folder. Surveillance photos of a young woman in a hospital bed. "Your cousin Amara. Stage 3 leukemia. Such expensive treatments. Would be unfortunate if her coverage suddenly disappeared." Nadia's blood turned to ice. Amara was 19. Her only family. The girl who'd called her cousin, since they were children growing up together in Atlanta. 6 months? Kang repeated, his voice gentle, which made it worse. "Complete this assignment. I clear your father's debt entirely. You and the child disappear. New city. New identity. Money to start fresh. Amara receives care at the best oncology center in Asia." He leaned closer. "Refuse and I kill you tonight. Write it off as a business loss." Nadia stared at Jin's photo, at Amara's medical file, at her belly where an unwanted life grew. A child conceived in violence, carried in fear. No good options. Only survival. 6 months, she whispered. "Then we're done. Forever." Kang's laughter echoed like breaking glass. "Your countdown starts now." For weeks later, Nadia stood in the Seoul Arts Center gallery, transformed. Wine-red dress that skimmed her curves without revealing the pregnancy. Her dark curls fell in waves over one shoulder. Kang's stylist had erased the desperate debtor, created a society woman. Jean stood alone near a massive canvas, an abstract piece done in blacks and golds. Despite the crowd, people gave him space. The unconscious deference shown to predators. He looked different from his surveillance photos. Younger than 35. There was something coiled about him, like a blade sheathed but ready. Nadia picked up a glass of Bordeaux, steadied her breath, started walking toward him, then deliberately stumbled on her deliberately loosened heel. The wine arced through the air in perfect slow motion, splashing crimson across Jin's pristine white shirt like blood. "Oh my God!" Her hand flew to her mouth, her practiced distress utterly convincing. "I'm so sorry." These heels, I'm such a disaster. Jean looked down at his ruined shirt, then up at her. His dark eyes were calculating, sharp as surgical steel. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd see through the charade. Then he smiled. Slow. Devastating. It's just a shirt. Though Chateau Margaux 2015 on Egyptian cotton does send a message. What message? That you're either genuinely clumsy. He plucked the wine glass from her trembling fingers, his touch deliberate, lingering. Or you wanted an excuse to talk to me. I'm hoping for the latter. I'm Yin. The intelligence file had described him as ruthless, cold, a man who'd allegedly killed his own uncle for embezzlement, who'd consolidated his father's fractured empire before his 25th birthday through strategy and carefully applied violence. This man was charming, warm, the kind of dangerous she hadn't prepared for, the kind that made you forget you were supposed to be afraid. Nadia, she managed, her American accent softening the syllables. Since you've already destroyed my evening where, perhaps you'd allow me to buy you dinner? There's a place nearby with a very forgiving dress code. She should have said no, should have played harder to get. But Kang's deadline was already ticking. I'd like that, she heard herself say. That first dinner turned into 3 hours of conversation about art, philosophy, the existential loneliness of power. Jean never once asked about her background, her work, her life. He just listened, like she was fascinating rather than a target. When he walked her to her taxi at midnight, he kissed her hand like they were in a different century. And Nadia? She was falling. Hard. Fast. Catastrophically. 2 months of deliberate courtship. Museums. Private concerts. Long walks along the Han River where they talked until sunrise. Jean noticed everything. How she took her tea. That she couldn't eat seafood without getting sick. That she touched her stomach when anxious. That last one made her paranoid. Did he know? Was he testing her? But he never mentioned it. Just kept showing up with books he thought she'd love. Taking her to restaurants where the lighting was low and forgiving. After their 2-month anniversary, a private screening of an old Korean film she'd mentioned loving, Nadia sat in her tiny apartment staring at Kang's latest text. Need the shipping manifests. Now, you're running out of time. She'd gotten nothing. Hadn't even been to Jin's office. Hadn't met his associates. They existed in this carefully constructed bubble separate from his actual empire. She typed back with shaking fingers. He doesn't trust me yet. I need more time. Kang's response was instantaneous. You have 4 months remaining. Get it done or I'll send someone more motivated. Your cousin's next treatment is scheduled for next week. Would be unfortunate if something went wrong with her medication. The threat was crystal clear. Amara would die if Nadia failed. She deleted the messages, turned off her phone, and cried until she had nothing left. 2 months later, on a private Jeju Island beach, Jean stopped walking. Nadia was 5 months pregnant now, visibly showing despite her best efforts at concealment. She'd mastered the art of strategic layering, loose fabrics, careful angles. But the truth was becoming impossible to hide. Jean had been quieter than usual during the helicopter ride from Seoul. Nadia, he turned to face her. I need to tell you something. Her blood turned to ice. He knows. He's known all along. This is where I die. I know you're carrying another man's child. The world tilted on its axis. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Let me finish. His voice was gentle but firm. I don't care whose child it is biologically. Marry me. I'll raise the baby as mine. Give you both my name, my protection, everything I have. Tears streamed down her face. Real, uncontrolled, terrified tears. Why would you do that? Because in 4 months, you've never once asked me for anything. His voice roughened with emotion. You've never tried to access my office, meet my people, question my business. You just saw me. The man who collects art because beauty is the only thing in this world he can trust. The man who's been alone so long he forgot what connection felt like. He cupped her face with surprising tenderness. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. Power, money, protection. Access. You're the first person who just wanted me. The man. Not the empire. Nadia should have said no. Should have confessed everything. Should have run while she still could. Instead, she whispered, yes. God help me, yes. Because somewhere between Kang's threats and Jin's careful courtship, between the mission and this moment, she'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with the man she was supposed to destroy. And that terrified her more than anything Kang could ever do. 2 weeks later, the wedding took place in a traditional hanok tucked into the mountains outside Seoul. Intimate. 30 people maximum, Jin's closest associates, family elders, people whose loyalty had been tested with blood. Nadia wore ivory silk that flowed like water over her pregnant belly. Jin couldn't stop looking at her like she was something precious and breakable all at once. She'd never felt more like a fraud. As they exchanged rings, Jin's family heirloom, heavy with history and obligation. Nadia caught movement in the back row. A woman in an emerald green dress, sitting alone. Korean, striking, composed, watching with eyes that held dangerous knowledge. The woman's expression never changed throughout the ceremony. Not when they kissed. Not when Jin's mother cried. Not when the guests applauded. She just watched and smiled like she knew every secret Nadia was carrying. After the ceremony, as guests mingled in the garden during cocktail hour, the woman approached. Up close, she was even more beautiful, sharp cheekbones, eyes like cut glass, the kind of poise that came from years of practice. Congratulations, Mrs. Park. I'm sure you'll be very happy together. Her voice was honey-laced with arsenic. Thank you, Nadia managed, searching for an escape route. I don't believe we've met. Sujin, Jin's former fiancé. The woman's smile was a surgical instrument. We were together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months before he called it off. I'm sure he's mentioned me. He hadn't. Not once. Sujin leaned in close, her perfume expensive and suffocating. Her voice dropped to a whisper meant only for Nadia. He doesn't know yet, does he? About Kang Min-ho. The champagne flute nearly slipped from Nadia's nerveless fingers. The world tilted sickeningly. I don't know what you're. Please. Sujin's laugh was knife-sharp. Don't insult both our intelligence. I spent 3 years learning every detail of Jin's world. Every enemy. Every threat. Every angle of attack. You think I wouldn't recognize Kang's signature manipulation when I see it? Nadia's voice came out strangled. What do you want? Right now? Nothing. Just wanted to introduce myself properly. Sujin's expression was unreadable. But I'll be watching, Mrs. Park. Very closely. One wrong move, one hint that you're planning to betray him, and I'll make sure your fairy tale ends the way these stories always do. Badly. She straightened, her mask of politeness sliding back into place like she'd never dropped it. Raised her voice to normal volume. Congratulations again. Jin deserves happiness after everything. I do hope you give it to him. Then she walked away, leaving Nadia frozen with terror. That night, after the reception ended and guests departed, Nadia found an envelope slipped under her hotel room door. Inside, a single photograph. Her. Leaving Kang's warehouse 7 months ago, face bruised, hand on her barely showing belly, and a note in elegant handwriting. I know what you are, what you're here to do. I'll give you one chance to walk away. Take it or face the consequences. S.J. Nadia burned the note in the bathroom sink, watching the paper curl and blacken. She should have felt threatened, terrified. Instead, she felt something worse. Understood. Sujin wasn't her enemy. She was a woman who'd loved Jin and lost him, who was now watching another woman lie to the man she still cared for. Nadia pressed her hand against her belly, feeling the baby kick. I'm sorry, she whispered to no one. I'm so sorry. But sorry didn't change the situation, didn't give her options she didn't have. She was still trapped, still lying, still falling deeper into a love that would destroy them all. 3 months of marriage. Jin was an extraordinary husband, attentive without being smothering, protective without being controlling. He talked to her belly every night, hands gentle on her skin, telling their daughter, they'd found out at the ultrasound, about the world she'd be born into. He went to every prenatal appointment, hired the best doctors, built a nursery painted in soft lavenders and grays, with hand-painted stars on the ceiling, made Nadia fall more in love with him every single day. And every day, Kang's messages became more vicious. Your cousin's treatment hit complications. Doctors are concerned. Funny how that happens when bills go unpaid. 2 months left. The baby comes soon. Will your daughter be born into your debt? I own you, Nadia. Stop pretending you have choices. She'd made the mistake of mentioning Amara to Jean in passing, her cousin fighting cancer. Jean had quietly arranged for the best treatment. Didn't tell Nadia. She only found out when Amara called crying with gratitude. One night, Jean found her sobbing in the nursery at 2 a.m., phone clutched in her hand. What's wrong? He knelt beside her chair, genuine concern etched in every line of his face. I'm terrified, she admitted. The first true thing she'd said in months. What if I'm a terrible mother? What if I can't protect her? You're already fighting for her. Jean pulled her close. That's what good mothers do. They fight, even when they're scared, even when the odds are impossible. They fight anyway. The next morning, Nadia made her decision. She'd tell Jean everything, confess it all, face his anger, his betrayal, whatever came after. But when she woke, Jean was already gone. An emergency meeting. His phone, the secure one he never left behind, sat charging on his nightstand. It buzzed. A message from his personal doctor. Paternity test scheduled for next week per your request. Confidential results will be delivered directly to you as discussed. Nadia's world shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. He'd known, had been planning this, was probably having her investigated right now by people who wouldn't stop until they found every secret, every lie, every thread that led back to Kong. She was still staring at the phone in numb shock when hers buzzed. A known number, but she knew that number, had memorized it from the wedding note. Sujin, coffee shop on Namsanaro, 30 minutes. Come alone. Your life depends on it. The line went dead. Sujin was already there when Nadia arrived, sitting in the back corner booth away from windows. She looked different, exhausted, almost fragile. The polished veneer from the wedding had cracked. She slid a thick folder across the table before Nadia even sat down. That's everything I have on Kang Min-ho. His operations, his vulnerabilities, his enemies, places where he's exposed. Nadia didn't touch it, couldn't process what she was seeing. Why? Because Jin's paternity test results arrive in 4 days. Sujin's voice was flat, emotionless. When he discovers that baby isn't his, when he realizes you were sent by Kong, he'll have you killed. Not out of anger. Jin doesn't do emotional violence. He'll kill you because betrayal in his world has exactly one consequence. Always has. Always will. You want me to run. I want you to survive. Sujin's composure cracked for just a moment. I loved Jin for 3 years. He was kind to me, respectful. We had a good partnership. I thought that was enough. That love would come with time. She laughed bitterly. Then I saw him with you at that gallery. The way he looked at you in the first 5 minutes? He never looked at me like that in 3 years. Not once. And I understood. I was never what he wanted. Just convenient, safe, the appropriate choice for a Korean crime lord. Sujin, don't apologize. It makes this harder. Sujin pushed the folder closer. I know what Jin does to traitors. I was there when he found out his cousin was embezzling. I helped dispose of the body, comforted the widow at the funeral 3 days later, watched Jean give the eulogy without a flicker of guilt. Her hands trembled around her coffee cup. He's not cruel, but he's absolute. Betrayal means death. No exceptions. No merci. Not even for the woman carrying his child, especially not when he finds out it's not his child at all. I've been delaying the test results, Sujin continued, her voice steadying, bribing lab technicians, intercepting shipments, rerouting paperwork. But I'm out of time, out of favors, out of moves. She pulled out a second envelope. False passport. Taiwanese citizenship under a different name. Bank account with enough money to disappear properly. There's a charity gala tomorrow night. Jin's hosting at the Grand Joseon. Major event. Security will be focused on external threats, VIP protection, the usual. Here's what's going to happen. Sujin's eyes were hard, determined. You're going to attend that gala like nothing's wrong. Smile. Play the perfect wife. And when Jin makes his speech, because he always makes a speech, I'm going to attack you. Nadia's blood ran cold. What? I'm going to physically attack you in front of everyone. Grab you. Make a scene. Create chaos. Sujin's voice was steady. In that chaos you run. There's a car waiting in the East Service entrance. Driver named Chen. He'll take you to Incheon Airport. Private charter to Taipei. You disappear. Why would you? Because if I just tell you to run, you won't. You love him too much. You'll convince yourself you can explain. That he'll understand. Sujin's eyes glistened. But I know Jin. There's no explaining betrayal. There's only punishment. She leaned forward. So I'm going to force your hand. I'm going to attack you so violently, so publicly, that you'll have no choice but to run. Jin will be focused on me. Security will be trying to restrain me. And you'll have maybe 90 seconds to get out. Nadia touched her belly. 7 months now. The baby's kick stronger every day. And if I don't run, if I stay, then you're a fool. But I suppose I already knew that. Understanding filled Sujin's eyes. You actually love him. Really, truly love him. Not the mission. Not the survival. Him. Does that matter? It matters to me. Sujin's voice cracked. Because if you didn't love him, if this was just a job, I could let you die without guilt. But you do love him. And he loves you. And I can't watch that burn because of Kang's manipulation. If you're still with me, still holding your breath wondering how this ends, hit subscribe. Because stories like this, stories about impossible choices and love that costs everything, they deserve to be heard. Don't let this be the last one you find. Jin ended our engagement 3 weeks before the wedding, Sujin said quietly, staring into her coffee. No warning. No explanation. Just, this isn't working. Sent me a very generous settlement. Asked me to keep it private. She looked up, eyes red. I spent 2 years trying to understand what I'd done wrong. Replayed every conversation, every moment. Tried to figure out where I'd failed to be enough. Then I saw him with you. Saw the way he touched you like you were precious. Laughed at your jokes like they were the first funny things he'd ever heard. Looked at you like you were air and he was drowning. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And I understood. I hadn't done anything wrong. I just wasn't you. Wasn't whoever it was he'd been waiting for his whole life. Sometimes love isn't about worthiness. It's about chemistry, timing, things we can't control.
I'm sorry.
Don't. Sujin stood abruptly. Tomorrow night, I'll attack you during Jin's speech. You run. You disappear. You give that baby a chance at life. What about you? Jin will think you've lost your mind. He'll think I'm a jealous ex who couldn't handle being replaced. Let him. She smiled sadly. At least this way you survive. Your daughter survives. And I finally get to do something that matters more than my own broken heart. Nadia stared at this woman who should have been her enemy, who was instead offering salvation at the cost of her own reputation. Why? She whispered. Really, truly why? Sujin's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Because no woman deserves to die for falling in love. Not even the one who got everything I wanted. Maybe especially not her. Someone should get the fairy tale, even if it's not me. And if I can't have it, at least I can make sure it exists. She walked away without looking back, leaving Nadia alone with a folder that could save her life and a choice that would define everything that came after. That evening, Jin came home near midnight, exhausted from emergency meetings with his Japanese contacts. Some problem with a shipment that required his personal attention. He found Nadia in the nursery, sitting in the rocking chair they'd picked out together, one hand on her belly, the other clutching Sujin's folder hidden beneath a blanket. You should be sleeping, he said gently, kneeling beside her. The baby needs rest. You need rest. Jean. Her voice was wrecked with tears she could barely control. If I'd done something terrible, something unforgivable, could you ever? Nadia. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. That's what marriage means. That's what love means. That's what this means. He touched her belly where his daughter, in his heart was growing. We're a family now. Nothing changes that. She almost broke. Almost confessed everything right then. Kong, the debt, the mission, the lies stacked upon lies like a house of cards ready to collapse. But his phone rang. Of course it did. Always the phone. Always business bleeding into their life at the worst possible moment. I have to take this, he said apologetically. 2 minutes. I promise. He stepped out into the hallway. She heard his voice shift into business mode, cold, calculated, the version of Jean the world saw. The version that killed without hesitation. When he came back 10 minutes later, she'd composed herself. Hidden the folder. Buried the truth one more time. Tomorrow, he said, pulling her into his arms with such tenderness it made her want to scream. At the gala, I have something important to tell you. Something I should have said the day we met. What? Tomorrow. He kissed her forehead. Some things deserve the right moment. The right setting. This deserves that. After he fell asleep, Nadia lay awake staring at the hand-painted stars Jean had spent weeks perfecting for their daughter. She'd made her decision. Tomorrow night, when Jean attacked her, she wouldn't run. She would stay. She would face Jean. She would tell him everything. Because running meant living in fear forever. And she was done being afraid. If he killed her, at least she'd die honest. Die having chosen truth over survival. She didn't text Jean. Didn't warn her that the plan would fail. Because Jean would attack her anyway. Would sacrifice herself anyway. And Nadia would use that moment, that chaos, not to run but to confess. One way or another, tomorrow night the lies would end. The Grand Joseon Hotel ballroom was a masterpiece of old-world elegance and modern excess. 3 massive crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across Italian marble floors. Gold trim on every surface. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Seoul's elite filled the space like beautiful, dangerous birds. Politicians whose decisions moved markets. CEOs who controlled industries. Crime lords in designer suits. The kind of people who shaped the country from shadowed rooms and backchannel deals. And at the center of it all, Park Jin-woo, looking like he'd been born in a tuxedo. Nadia wore midnight blue, a custom Valentino that flowed like water over her 7-month belly. Jean had insisted on the designer, had stood with her through 3 fittings, had looked at her like she hung the moon and stars. Tonight, she'd never felt more like she was betraying him, or more certain that she was done lying. Across the ballroom, Jean made her entrance in emerald green that turned every head. Their eyes met across the crowd. Jean's expression was clear. Last chance. When I attack, you run. Don't be stupid. Nadia shook her head almost imperceptibly. I'm not running. I'm staying. Something flickered across Jean's face. Shock, then resignation, then what might have been respect mixed with grief. Jean was magnetic tonight, working the room with practiced ease, shaking hands with the mayor, laughing at the German ambassador's jokes, making a donation to children's hospitals that would fund an entire wing. The perfect crime lord playing the perfect philanthropist. But he kept glancing at Nadia, nervous, excited, something vulnerable in his eyes she'd never seen before. At 9 p.m. exactly, he tapped his champagne glass with a knife. The room fell silent with the kind of instant obedience that came from fear disguised as respect. Thank you all for coming tonight, Jean began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the ballroom. This annual gala raises millions for pediatric care across Seoul. It's a cause that matters deeply to me, for reasons that will become clear in a moment. He looked directly at Nadia, and his expression softened in a way that made her heart break. But tonight isn't just about charity. Tonight is about the future, about family, about the things that matter more than empires and legacies. He gestured for her to join him at the center of the ballroom. As Nadia walked toward him, past politicians and criminals in $1,000 suits, past Jin's mother who watched with cautious approval, she felt Su Jin moving through the crowd, positioning herself, getting ready to attack. Don't do this, Nadia thought desperately. I'm not going to run. You're going to sacrifice yourself for nothing. But Su Jin's expression was resolute, determined, the expression of someone who'd already made peace with terrible choices. 6 months ago, Jin continued, his eyes never leaving Nadia's face, I met a woman who changed my entire world. Nadia came into my life when I'd given up on finding something real. When I'd accepted that my world, this world, doesn't allow for genuine connection. The ballroom was utterly silent. This wasn't standard gala small talk. This was something else entirely. She was pregnant with another man's child. Guarded. Careful. She had every reason to be wary of me, of this world I inhabit. His voice softened with genuine emotion. But she saw past all of it. Past the money, the power, the park empire. She saw me, the man who collects art because beauty is the only thing in this world he trusts. The man who's been alone so long he forgot what connection even felt like. Nadia's eyes burned with tears she couldn't control. Every word made this harder, made the truth more impossible and more necessary to speak. I fell in love with her honesty, her strength, the way she fought to protect her child even when she had nothing. So tonight, I wanted to make an announcement, and that's when Su Jin struck. She moved fast, faster than anyone expected from a woman in heels and an evening gown. Her hands grabbed Nadia's dress at the shoulder, yanking hard. The sound of ripping fabric echoed like a gunshot. Get away from him! Su Jin screamed, her voice raw with manufactured rage. You don't deserve him. You lying bitch! The crowd gasped. Security moved immediately, Jin's people ex-military trained to respond to threats. But Su Jin was relentless. She shoved Nadia hard, pushing her toward the exit. Her nails raked across Nadia's arm, drawing blood. I know what you are. Su Jin shrieked, making sure everyone could hear. I know what you did. You need to leave now before he finds out. She grabbed Nadia's hair, yanking her head back, whispered urgently, the car is waiting. East Service entrance. Run, you fool. Run. Then louder, for the crowd. You're going to destroy him, just like you destroyed everyone else. Security grabbed Su Jin, trying to pull her away, but she fought like a woman possessed, clawing, scratching, screaming, creating chaos, creating the perfect opportunity for Nadia to escape. Jin's face had gone blank, that terrifying emptiness that came before violence. His hand moved toward his jacket, where the gun lived. Su Jin, what the hell? He started. But Su Jin wasn't done. She broke free from one security guard, lunged at Nadia again, grabbed the front of her dress and tore. The fabric ripped from shoulder to waist, exposing Nadia's pregnant belly, her bra, making her vulnerable and exposed in front of 300 people. Look at her! Su Jin screamed, tears streaming down her face. Real tears now, not manufactured. Look what she's hiding. Look what she's been hiding from you this whole time. And in that moment, Nadia made her choice. Not to run, to stay. She grabbed Su Jin's hands, not to fight, but to stop her, to hold her still. Stop, Nadia said quietly, firmly. Please, just stop. The ballroom went silent. Even Su Jin froze, staring at her in disbelief. I'm not running, Nadia said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She looked at Jin, whose expression was unreadable. Dangerous. I'm not running because she's right. I have been hiding something, and it's time you knew the truth. Nadia, don't, Su Jin whispered desperately. Jin, Nadia continued, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face, despite her torn dress, despite 300 pairs of eyes watching her world end. Su Jin attacked me because she knows. She's known for weeks, She was trying to save me by forcing me to run. But I'm not going to run. Not anymore. Jin's hand was on his gun now. Save you from what? Nadia took a breath that felt like drowning. 6 months ago, I didn't spill wine on you by accident. I was sent to seduce you, to get close to you, to steal your shipping manifests, your port schedules, your supplier contacts. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Jin's expression didn't change, didn't flicker. He just stared at her with those dark eyes. Kong Minho sent me, she continued. This baby, your daughter, she's not yours biologically. She's his. I was already 3 months pregnant when I met you. I was supposed to destroy you from the inside. Steal everything and disappear. Security was moving closer now. Jin's mother had stood up, her face pale with shock and rage. But I fell in love with you, Nadia said, her voice breaking. I fell in love with you and I couldn't do it. I haven't sent Kong anything in 4 months. I've been lying to him, stalling, refusing to betray you even though it meant risking everything. When? Jin's voice was pure ice. When were you planning to tell me this? I saw the message about the paternity test yesterday. I knew you'd find out. Sujin gave me a chance to run money, documents, an entire escape plan. But I'm done running. Done lying. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice stayed strong. If you're going to kill me, I'd rather face it honest. I'd rather die telling you the truth than spend my life looking over my shoulder, knowing I destroyed the only real thing I've ever had. She looked at Sujin, who was crying silently, still held by security. And she tried to save me. She attacked me to force me to run because she knew I wouldn't do it myself. Because she knew what you do to traitors. Because despite everything, despite me taking everything from her, she couldn't watch another woman die. For a long, terrible moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Jin drew his gun. The crowd screamed. Some guests fled for the exits. Others froze, transfixed by the drama unfolding before them. But Jin didn't point the gun at Nadia. He pointed it at Sujin. You knew, he said softly, lethally. For weeks, you knew. You protected her, helped her, gave her chances to escape, attacked her tonight to save her. Sujin lifted her chin, meeting his eyes without flinching even with a gun pointed at her heart. Yes. Why? Because she fell in love with you. Really, truly loved you. Not the empire. Not the power. You. The man I spent 3 years trying to reach and never could. Sujin's voice was calm despite her tears. Because that baby doesn't deserve to die for its parents' sins. Because Kong blackmailed her. Threatened her cousin's life, her family, everything she had left. Or, Jin's voice was deadly quiet. You wanted revenge. Make me fall in love, then destroy it. Finally get back at me for choosing her over you. If I wanted revenge, I would have told you when she was 8 months pregnant. Sujin's composure didn't waver. When you were too attached to the baby to walk away. When you'd already bought the nursery furniture. When the betrayal would cut deepest. I'm trying to save her life, Jin. Even though watching you love her has been killing me slowly for months. Why? The gun didn't waver. Why save the woman who took everything from you? Because you looked at her the way I always prayed you'd look at me. Sujin's voice finally broke. Because in 3 years together, you never once smiled at me like I was sunlight after years of darkness. Because she got the version of you I spent every single day trying to find. The man who laughs, who's gentle, who's capable of actual love instead of just respect and partnership. The ballroom was dead silent except for Sujin's ragged breathing. But she still deserves to live, Sujin continued, quieter now. She still deserves a chance. She chose truth over survival tonight. She stayed when she could have run. That takes more courage than I ever had. She looked at Nadia, then back at Jin. So do what you want with me. Shoot me. Exile me. But let her go. Please. One act of mercy for 3 years of loyalty. One life saved for all the ones you've taken. For 30 seconds that felt like 30 years, no one moved. The gun in Jin's hand didn't waver. His face was a mask. The businessman, the crime lord, the man who'd built an empire on calculated ruthlessness and absolute control. Then he lowered the gun. "Everyone out," he said quietly. "Now. Mr. Park, we should secure." His head of security started. "Out." Jin's voice cracked like a whip. "Every single person. Yes. Staff. Security. You have 30 seconds. Anyone still here after that gets a bullet." The ballroom evacuated in chaos. Guests fled. Staff disappeared. Even Jin's mother left, though her eyes promised Nadia a reckoning later. In under 2 minutes, only 3 people remained in the vast, glittering ballroom. Jin. Nadia. Sujin. Jin looked at Nadia, his expression unreadable. "Does Kong know you stopped cooperating?" "No. He thinks I'm still working on it." "Getting closer. Your cousin. The one with leukemia. Where is she?" "Seoul National University Hospital. Oncology Wing, Room 412. Her name is Amara." Jin pulled out his phone, made a call, his voice pure business. "I need a full security detail at Seoul National, Oncology Wing, Room 412. Patient is Kwan Amara. No one in or out without my personal authorization. I don't care if they claim to be family. No one." He made another call. "Transfer 200 million won to Seoul National Scholarship Fund. Full ride for Kwan Amara through medical school, all expenses, living stipend, research grants. Effective immediately. Make it anonymous." He pocketed his phone, looked at Nadia's shocked face. "Your cousin will be safe, protected, educated. Kong won't touch her. Ever." Nadia's legs nearly gave out. "Why?" "Because you chose to stay." Jin's voice was raw with emotion he wasn't bothering to hide. "Sujin gave you multiple chances, money, documents, an entire escape plan. You could have disappeared completely. Started over somewhere Kong would never find you. But you stayed. Chose to face me knowing I'd probably kill you. That tells me something." He turned to Sujin, who was still being held loosely by security he'd forgotten to dismiss. "Let her go." Security released her immediately. "You could have destroyed me tonight," Jin said to Sujin. "Exposed everything in front of everyone who matters. My enemies, my allies, the mayor, international contacts. My reputation would be in ruins. My enemies would have ammunition for years. Instead, you risked your life, your reputation, everything, to save the woman who replaced you. I told you why," Sujin said quietly. "Because she loves you. Because I loved you enough to want you happy, even if it wasn't with me." Jin's expression softened fractionally. Then he said something that made both women freeze. "I knew." Complete, utter silence. "I knew from the very beginning," Jin continued, his voice quiet but carrying across the empty ballroom. "You think I'd marry someone without investigating them thoroughly? I knew about Kong, about the baby, about the threats, about your cousin, about your father's debts. All of it." Nadia couldn't breathe. The torn dress hung off her shoulders. Blood from Sujin's nails trickled down her arm. "Then why?" "Because you were different from everyone else Kong sent." Jin stepped closer to her, his face finally showing emotion. Pain, love, frustration, all tangled together. "He sent 3 people before you. All tried to seduce me within days. All pushed hard for access to my operations. All failed because they were obvious, professional, just doing a job." He touched her face gently, carefully avoiding the scratches. "But you tried to quit before you even met me. I had someone inside Kang's organization. They reported that you begged him to let you go. That you were terrified, pregnant, desperate. That you cried for hours after he threatened your cousin. And when we started dating, you never asked about my business. Never pushed for access. You just existed beside me. Like you were trying desperately not to be a spy. Like you actually wanted to know me, not use me. Like every moment with me was making you feel more guilty instead of more successful." "The paternity test?" Sujin asked, her voice hollow with shock. "Was to legally protect the child. To establish that Kong has 0 parental claim." Jin's smile was grim. "I don't care about biology, Sujin. I never have. I've known from day one that baby wasn't mine genetically. I was always going to raise her as mine. Protect her. Love her. Make sure she never knew Kong existed. Her? Nadia whispered. It's a girl. The doctor told me 3 weeks ago. I was planning to surprise you tonight with a name I'd chosen. Hannah. It means flower. Resilience. Hope. Something beautiful growing from difficult soil. He looked at Sujin, and his expression was complicated. Gratitude. Regret. Something like respect. And you really thought I didn't know you were helping her. Sujin's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. I've had surveillance on you since the wedding, Jean continued. Not because I didn't trust you, because I wanted to make sure you were safe. Kong has a habit of targeting people I care about. I know about the bribes, the delayed test results, the escape car waiting outside right now, the safe house in Taipei, the contacts in Vancouver. Chen, the driver, who's probably wondering why Nadia never showed up. Then why let me? Because I wanted to see if you meant it. Jin's voice was honest. If you'd really sacrifice yourself for her. 3 years together, you were always loyal, competent, perfect, the ideal partner for a man in my position. But I never knew if you actually cared about me or just about the position, the security, the empire, the respectability of being Mrs. Park. He holstered his gun carefully. Tonight, you proved it. You threw yourself on a grenade to save someone you had every reason to hate. You attacked her in front of everyone, destroyed your own reputation, made yourself look insane. All to give her a chance at life. That's real. That's what I needed to see. That somewhere in our 3 years you actually cared. Nadia collapsed into a nearby chair, her pregnant body finally giving in to the strain. Her torn dress barely covered her. Blood from the scratches stained her skin. Sobs racked through her. Terror, relief, confusion all tangled together. I don't understand, she gasped. You knew everything. You still married me. Still loved me. Still loved you? Yes. Jean knelt in front of her, taking her hands carefully. You were trying to survive, Nadia. Protect your family. I understand survival. It's the only thing I've ever truly understood. It's how I got here. It's why my empire exists. But the lies were survival. I get that. What I don't forgive, what I can't forgive yet, is that you didn't trust me. For the first time all night, Jin's control cracked completely. Do you have any idea what these months have been like? Knowing the woman I love is lying to me every single day. Watching you cry yourself to sleep because you're trapped between me and Kong? Seeing you suffer and unable to help because if I revealed what I knew, you'd know I'd been lying too. His voice broke. I wanted you to trust me enough to tell the truth on your own terms, to choose me over fear, to believe that I'd protect you. But you never did. Not until you had absolutely no other choice. Not until Sujin forced your hand. I was going to tell you tonight. Were you? Jean stood, pacing now, agitated. Or were you only confessing because the test results were coming? Because you were cornered? Because you'd seen the message and knew you were out of time? His voice was raw with pain. I'll never know, Nadia. That's what I can't forgive. The uncertainty. The doubt that will always be there. Did you choose truth? Or did truth choose you? Nadia had no answer. Because he was right. She didn't know either. What happens now? Sujin asked quietly, still standing where security had released her, her elegant dress torn, her makeup running. Jin's jaw clenched, his businessman mask sliding back into place. Now I end this. Kang's organization, his trafficking networks, his blackmail operations, everything. Tonight. That's a war, Sujin said carefully. He has allies throughout Southeast Asia. Resources. People who've profited from his operations for decades. They'll retaliate. So do I. Better ones. Jean was already pulling out his phone, making rapid-fire calls. I've been building a case against him for 3 months. Evidence of human trafficking, sex slavery rings, child exploitation, money laundering through 17 countries, murder, corruption. I've been waiting for the right moment to strike. Now I have it. He looked at Nadia, something fierce and protective in his eyes. He threatened you. He used a pregnant woman as a weapon. He threatened to kill a 19-year-old girl dying of cancer to force your compliance. That's not business. That's personal. And I take personal very, very seriously. He turned to Sujin. I need your help. You know his people, his systems, his actual weaknesses, not just what's in intelligence files. Why would I help you? Because you're already in this. Jin's expression was grim. The moment you protected Nadia, you chose a side. Everyone in that ballroom saw you attack her, heard you scream about her secrets. When word gets out, and it's already spreading, Kong will see you as a traitor. He'll come for you, your family, anyone you've ever cared about. He'll make examples. So my choices are help you or die. Your choices are help me end him permanently, with legal justice that actually sticks, or spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder waiting for his revenge. Jin's voice softened slightly. Help me, and I'll make sure you're protected. That your family is protected. That you have everything you need to start over, anywhere in the world. New identity if you want it. Resources, security, freedom. Sujin looked at Nadia, who was still crying silently in the chair, then back at Jin. Something resolved in her expression. What do you need? 72 hours later, Kang Min-ho's empire didn't collapse. It was surgically dismantled with the precision of a military operation. His shipping containers at Busan port were raided simultaneously by Korean customs, Interpol, and FBI agents. Human trafficking evidence everywhere. 12 women and children freed from hidden compartments. Documentation linking him to trafficking rings in 6 countries, including routes through Thailand, Philippines, and Eastern Europe. His financial accounts across 3 continents were frozen within hours. Money laundering charges backed by 3 years of meticulous documentation. Jin had been investigating him long before Nadia entered the picture. The web went deep. Shell companies, corrupt banks, politicians on payroll. His protection network evaporated overnight when video evidence emerged of him personally orchestrating contract killings. Judges he'd bought. Police captains he'd bribed. All of it exposed in coordinated leaks to every major media outlet across Asia. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, legal. Kang himself was arrested at his warehouse, the same warehouse where he'd threatened Nadia 7 months ago, where he'd gripped her chin and laid out her impossible choices. This time, he was surrounded by federal agents and international cameras. No dramatic shootout. No escape. No last-minute deals. Just handcuffs and the flash of photographs that would define his legacy as a monster. Jin made sure it was legal, public, permanent. The kind of justice that couldn't be undone with bribes or connections or threats. Kang would die in prison. Everyone knew it. Nadia watched the arrest on television from Jin's penthouse, his arm around her shoulders, their daughter kicking hard against her ribs as if celebrating. It's over, Jin said quietly. Is it? She looked up at him, saw the careful distance still in his eyes. You still haven't forgiven me. I can see it every time you look at me. Jin was silent for a long moment, staring at the television where Kang was being loaded into a police van. I forgive you for being caught in an impossible situation, he finally said. I forgive you for trying to survive, for protecting your family, for doing what you had to do. He paused, his jaw tight. But forgiving you for not trusting me? For choosing fear over faith even after I'd shown you who I was? After months of me trying to prove I was safe? That's gonna take time. Maybe a lot of time. I understand. But we have time. His hand moved to her belly, feeling their daughter, Hannah, move beneath his palm. We have this little fighter on the way. A life to build. I'm not giving up on us, Nadia. I'm just not going to pretend the betrayal doesn't hurt, that the doubt isn't there, that I don't wake up sometimes wondering if you'd still be lying if you hadn't been caught. What kind of life can we have with that between us? An honest one, for the first time. Jin's smile was sad but genuine. No more lies, no more secrets, no more wondering, just the messy, complicated truth of two people who love each other trying to figure out if that's enough. Trying to build trust from scratch when it should have been there from the beginning. He pulled her closer. It won't be easy. There will be hard days. Days when I pull away. Days when you see me doubt. But I'm willing to try if you are. Because the alternative, a life without you, without Hannah, that's worse than the pain of rebuilding. The war against Kong hadn't been bloodless. 2 of Jin's lieutenants were dead, killed in retaliatory strikes in the chaotic hours before Kang's arrest. Several more wounded. Property damage in the millions. New enemies made among the allies Kong had maintained throughout Southeast Asia. And Soo-jin had paid the highest personal price. She'd been identified publicly as the woman who helped Jin, who'd known about Nadia's mission and hidden it. Kang's remaining allies, the ones who escaped arrest, marked her as a traitor. Death threats. Attempts on her life. Her family went into protective custody. Jin offered her everything. Protection, a position as head of intelligence for his entire East Asian operations, money, security, a place in his organization where she'd be valued and safe. She refused it all. Soo-jin met Nadia at a cafe one last time. Not the one where she'd offered her the escape plan. They'd burned that bridge. A new place. Neutral ground. Security watching from a distance. I'm leaving Seoul, Soo-jin said without preamble. New York. I have connections there. A job opportunity with a private security firm that specializes in helping women escape dangerous situations. Jin offered you a position. Head of intelligence for the entire East Asian operations. You'd be powerful, protected, wealthy. I know. I said no. Soo-jin's smile was heartbreaking. I can't stay here. Can't watch you two build a family. Play house with the baby I helped save. Pretend the past didn't happen. I'm not that strong. Nobody is. You saved my life. I saved a baby's life. There's a difference. But Soo-jin reached across the table, squeezed Nadia's hand one last time. Be happy. Make all of this worth it. That's all I ask. Make him happy in ways I never could. Give him the love he was waiting for his whole life. Soo-jin. And Nadia? When your daughter asks about her aunt someday, because she will, children always do, tell her about me. Tell her there was a woman who loved her father enough to let him go. Who saved a stranger because it was the right thing to do, even when it cost her everything. Tell her that love isn't always about winning. Sometimes it's about losing gracefully. Sometimes it's about choosing someone else's happiness over your own. Tears streamed down both their faces. I will. I promise. Soo-jin stood to leave, then hesitated. One more thing. The surveillance Jin had on me? I knew about it the whole time. I let him see exactly what I wanted him to see. Made sure he understood I was helping you because it was right, not because I still wanted him back. Not because I was trying to manipulate him. Why? Because I didn't want him feeling guilty about me. Didn't want him looking at you and seeing my sacrifice shadowing your marriage. Your relationship has enough complications without adding my ghost to it. She smiled through tears. Some bridges you burn so people can't walk backward. So they have no choice but to move forward into whatever comes next. This is me burning the bridge. For all of us. She left without looking back, walking out of the cafe and out of their lives. Nadia watched her go, one hand on her belly where Hannah was kicking, and wondered if she'd ever be capable of that kind of selfless love. 5 months later, Hannah May Park was born on a Tuesday morning in September. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Perfect tiny fingers that wrapped around Jin's thumb. A face that would someday break hearts. Skin a beautiful blend of her heritage. Dark curls. Eyes that would eventually settle into warm brown. Jin held her like she was made of spun glass and starlight. This child who wasn't his biologically but was his in every way that mattered. She has your eyes, he whispered, awed. She has your determination, Nadia said. Exhausted and radiantly happy despite the 22-hour labor. Took forever to arrive. Stubborn from birth. They named her Hannah May Park. Flower. Beautiful. A new beginning growing from scorched earth and impossible choices. Jin's mother came to visit. a formidable woman who'd made her feelings about the situation brutally clear over the past months. But she held Hannah and cried, and when she left, she kissed Nadia's forehead with something that might have been forgiveness. "Thank you," she whispered in Korean, "for giving my son something to fight for besides power and revenge. For making him want to be better." Trust didn't rebuild overnight. It grew slowly, painfully, like bones knitting back together after a compound fracture. There were hard conversations with a therapist who specialized in trauma and betrayal. Sessions where they excavated their wounds in front of a patient professional who didn't judge, just guided. Moments when Jean pulled away emotionally and Nadia had to resist the urge to panic, to assume it was over. Times when Nadia woke screaming from nightmares about Kong, even though he was serving consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole in maximum security. But they worked at it, chose each other again and again, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. For months after Hannah's birth, Jean came home with a small velvet box. "What's this?" Nadia asked, bouncing their daughter gently. "Open it." Inside was a key and a property deed. "The beach house, where I proposed on Jeju Island." Jin's voice was careful. "I put it in your name, just yours. No matter what happens between us, if we make it or if we don't, you'll always have a place that's completely yours. Somewhere you can go. Somewhere you can take Hannah. Somewhere you'll never be trapped again." Nadia's vision blurred with tears. "Jean, I never want you to feel trapped again. Not by circumstances. Not by debt. Not by me. Not by anyone or anything." He pulled her close, careful of the baby between them. "You stayed when you could have run. Now I'm giving you the choice to run. Every single day. And hoping, praying that you'll choose to stay. Not because you have to. Because you want to." She kissed him through tears, tasting salt and hope. "I choose to stay. Every day. Every moment. I choose this messy, complicated, beautiful life we're building together. I choose you." In New York, Soo-Jean opened her private security consulting firm in a small office in Manhattan. Her first client, a woman fleeing domestic violence, trapped by a powerful husband who thought he was untouchable. As Soo-Jean helped the woman create an exit strategy, false documents, hidden bank accounts, a network of safe houses across 3 states, she thought of Nadia and smiled sadly. Some loves you hold onto with everything you have. Some you let go because holding on would destroy everyone. Some you save even when it destroys you to do it. And sometimes that's enough. That act of letting go with grace and dignity. That choice to save someone even at terrible cost to yourself. That sacrifice that nobody will ever fully understand. Her phone buzzed. A photo from Nadia, Hannah sleeping in her crib, Jean reading in a chair beside her, the picture of domestic peace and second chances. 3 words underneath, "Thank you. For everything." Soo-Jean typed back quickly. "Be happy. That's payment enough. That's all I ever wanted." Then she deleted Nadia's number. Deleted the photos. Deleted every trace of that chapter of her life. Some bridges you burn so you can't walk backward. So you have no choice but to build something new from the ashes of what was. A year after Hannah's birth, Nadia stood in the nursery watching Jean teach their daughter to crawl across the soft carpet. "Come on, little flower," he coaxed gently, holding out his hands. "You can do it. Just one more try. Just a little further." Hannah wobbled on chubby hands and knees, fell onto her stomach, looked frustrated, then tried again with fierce determination that was pure Jean. Nadia's phone buzzed. A message from Amara, now cancer-free and thriving, starting her medical residency at Seoul's best hospital. "Cuz, thank you for the birthday present. I still can't believe your husband funded the entire pediatric oncology research wing in my name. You're both amazing. Love you." Nadia smiled, tears in her eyes. She'd finally told her cousin everything months ago. About Kong. About Jean. About how love could grow in the most impossible soil. How hope could bloom from ashes. "What are you thinking about?" Jean asked, coming up behind her as Hannah played with blocks. "How we got here. How close we came to never making it. How many times this could have ended differently. But we did make it. We survived. Both of us. He wrapped his arms around her. That's what matters now. Not the past. The present. The future we're building. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd taken Sujin's escape plan? If I'd run when she attacked me? Jean was quiet for a long moment, his arms tightening around her. Every single day, I think about losing you, losing Hannah. I think about how close I came to destroying the only thing that's ever made me feel human. The only thing that ever made me want to be better than what this world made me. Do you regret it? Choosing this life? This beautiful mess? Jean considered, really considered, his arms a steady anchor around her. I regret the pain, the lies, the time we lost to fear and deception, the trust we have to rebuild brick by brick. But you, Hannah, this impossible family we've built from ashes and impossible choices and stubborn hope. He kissed her temple softly. Never, not for 1 second, because the alternative, a life without you, without her, without this, that's worse than any pain, any doubt, any work it takes to rebuild what was broken. That night, after Hannah was finally asleep in her crib, Jean and Nadia sat on their balcony overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. The city spread out below them like a sea of lights, millions of lives, millions of stories. I got a letter from Kang's lawyer today, Jean said quietly, his voice carefully neutral. Nadia tensed immediately. What did it say? He wants to meet Hannah, claims parental rights as her biological father. Her blood turned to ice. What did you? I sent back a copy of the paternity test. Jin's smile was sharp, satisfied. The real one, not the one I told you about. Turns out you were already 2 months pregnant when Kang forced you into that transaction. When he raped you under the guise of a payment arrangement. Nadia's hand flew to her mouth. What? Your medical records from before you met Kang. I had them retrieved months ago before we even married. You'd been to a clinic in Atlanta, gotten confirmation of pregnancy. First trimester. Chose not to terminate, despite having no resources, no support. He took her hand gently. The child was never Kang's. She was yours. Just yours, from someone before all of this, before the debt, before the threats. Someone you never told me about because it didn't matter to the story, to the survival. Tears streamed down Nadia's face as the implications hit her. All this time, all the lies, all the fear, and Hannah had never been Kang's at all. Why didn't you tell me? Because you needed to decide to tell me the truth on your own terms. Not because you were cornered. Not because you ran out of options. Because you wanted to. Because you trusted me. Jean pulled her close. And you did. Finally. At the gala. You chose truth over survival. That's what mattered. That's what I needed to see. They sat in silence, watching the city lights blur through grateful tears.
I'm sorry, Nadia whispered.
For all of it. For not trusting you sooner. For no more apologies. Jin's voice was firm but gentle. We're past that now. We're building something new. Something honest. Something real. The messy, complicated truth of us. Somewhere in New York City, Sujin stood at her office window, watching the Manhattan sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and blood. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Park Jin-woo announces $100 million donation to women's shelters and trafficking prevention programs across Asia. Names initiative after ex-fiancé Sujin Park. She smiled through sudden tears. Jin was changing, softening, becoming more than his father's legacy of violence and control. Because of Nadia. Because of love. Because someone had finally seen past the empire to the man underneath. The man who wanted to be better. Sujin